Hello, this is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and we are back again for a news roundup to look at some of the more interesting products we saw pop up in the auto industry over the past week or so. And let's get right into it. Since the original Lexus ES, the formula for front-drive Lexus products has been pretty straightforward. Take a Toyota product, reskin it with a bolder look, upgrade the interior, add some new tech, and maybe tweak the powertrain. And because that strategy has largely worked, it's happened again, and that's with Lexus's new flagship EV, the Lexus TZ. Now, while Toyota's new EV-only Highlander will be sold alongside the ICE-powered Grand Highlander, TZ will be sold alongside the ICE-powered Lexus TX. And Z, of course, indicates that it is a zero-emissions vehicle. It'll target the small group of currently in market three-row luxury SUV EVs from the legacy brands, largely legacy. The Volvo EX90, Mercedes EQS SUV, the Cadillac Vistiq, and of course the two new startups, the Rivian R1S and the Lucid Gravity. There is some new to Lexus technology here, including one-pedal driving and rear-wheel steering, which we've seen the Europeans put into effect. Another cool feature is the availability of sound schemes, including one that will make your TZ sound like a Lexus LFA V10, which sounds kind of fun and perhaps a little weird. The performance numbers for the TZ are competent, but not class-leading. Which is better than the original RZ, which was definitely not competitive to start with. It'll offer the same 77 kilowatt hour and 96 kilowatt hour batteries as the Highlander. According to Lexus Europe site, they're claiming 402 horsepower. We assume that'll be the same for the US. If it is, that's actually a little lower than expected because the new Subaru Getaway, which shares its platform with the TZ, puts out 420 horsepower. So we'll see if that number winds up changing for the US specific specs. The maximum EV range is 300 miles, which is comparable to Volvo, Mercedes, and Cadillac, but way short of where Rivian and Lucid are with well over 400 miles. Probably the biggest disadvantage is the DC fast charge speed, which isn't very fast at only 150 kilowatts, so that is worst in segment, even behind the other 400 volt entries around here. You do get a full suite of safety tech available. One notable omission is hands-free driving. Now, we know that Toyota has this technology on the shelf with Teammate that was offered on the now no longer in production Lexus LS. A number of our competitors offer it as well, but it hasn't shown up here, at least not yet. Also missing, surprisingly, is a frunk. Now, the first round of European EVs that came out also didn't have frunks, but they're starting to fix that with the second gen. So that does put Lexus here at a bit of a disadvantage. Visually, it's kind of an interesting looking vehicle. It definitely looks very different from the Toyota, even though the proportions are obviously similar. And the interior is equally unique as well. It does look appropriately upscale. The layout, again, is very similar to the Highlander and different from the RZ, which you recall has kind of the forward-mounted instrument cluster and the available steering yoke. You do get available power ottomans for the front passenger and second row seats for extra comfort. There are 6 Japanese-inspired interior lighting themes and sustainable materials, very trendy among luxury brands these days, include forged bamboo, bio-based ultra suede, and recycled aluminum roof rails on the outside. Below the large central touchscreen, you'll note that there are switches embedded into the surface of the dashboard, so kind of like the Nissan Ariya. They do offer tactile feedback, but it's not a total physical switch you get on, for example, the new VW ID Polo. The TZ will join the RZ and the ES Electric in Lexus's now 3-vehicle EV portfolio. The information we got so far suggests it'll be at least competitive. We'll get more information later this year when it officially goes on sale, but it does seem like a good start. And speaking of the ID Polo, let's dive into that. Volkswagen has long struggled with the idea of producing an affordable EV. As far back as 2019, Volkswagen discussed a $21,000 EV that would debut as early as the 2023 Frankfurt Motor Show. As we all know, that did not happen. In 2021, it announced the Seat brand would lead the development of a $26,000 EV that would launch in 2025, using what then was called the MEB Lite architecture. Later in 2021, VW showed a concept called the ID Life, and Volkswagen brand took control back of the program from Seat. and it continued, unfortunately, to be delayed. Engineers took elements of MEB, which was a rear drive platform with all-wheel drive capability, and then they developed what was now renamed the MEB Entry or MEB Plus architecture. So that is front drive only, front drive only. No all-wheel drive capability. It was previewed a few years ago with the ID2 all small hatchback concept. And now, of course, we have the production version, which is known as the ID Polo. Volkswagen decided that the whole alphanumeric thing was a little too confusing, and while they do want to keep ID to identify the dedicated EV entries, they want to use recognizable brands. So the ID4, for example, will become the ID Tiguan later this year. To be honest, having seen the concept 4 years ago, and it was, to my surprise, 4 years ago at the Munich Motor Show, and the production vehicle basically unchanged, I'm kind of a little bored. It's not an unattractive vehicle. It's just that there doesn't seem to be anything new or fresh that makes you want to rush out and get it, unless you're looking for something extremely conservative. It's a nicely designed and proportioned 5-door hatchback. It is the footprint of an ICE VW Polo, but reportedly the interior package of a larger Golf. The powertrain is identical to the Cooper Revolve that I talked about a few weeks ago, a 37 kilowatt hour LFP battery or a 52 kilowatt hour NMC battery, anywhere from 114 to 208 horsepower. There is a 223 horsepower ID Polo GTI that will follow. Rumors up to about 282 horsepower Club Sport variant as well. And that would definitely be a standout of all the entries on this architecture. Range up to 282 miles on the European cycle, roughly about 240 miles on the EPA cycle. So not bad for a vehicle of this size. It does have some nice tech, standard semi-autonomous travel assist, a rear view camera, smartphone mirroring, and smartphone controlled remote parking. Because parking, of course, is a little more challenging in Europe than it is here in the US. While the exterior is very conservative, the interior is conservative but better and maybe a little more modern, and it marks a return to physical controls, which Volkswagen has finally admitted is something that customers would like in their vehicles. So it's not unlike the recently revealed ID3 Neo. You get a 10.25-inch instrument cluster, digital, with an optional kind of retro theme that you see here, and a 13-inch touchscreen with a row of actual physical switches for climate control and hazard lights, as well as a physical knob for the audio volume and radio tuning. Now, Volkswagen says the ID Polo is the first of Volkswagen's EVs to be created with such a prominent focus on how it will be used. The brand will now start with people asking who's actually driving this car. Now, I think this is a great idea. I'm kind of surprised that VW is saying they've never done this before, because they've been building cars for years. I know there have been some glitches and goofs in the past, but this seems to throw the entire product development organization under the bus. Now, as I said, perhaps there is a huge contingent of European buyers who want a safe, conservative electric hatchback that doesn't bring anything new to the playing field, aside from maybe the Volkswagen logo. But to be honest, I was hoping for a little more. And we'll finish up with something really suitably crazy and outlandish. The Dreame Nebula Next 01 Jet Edition. Now, we first saw Dreame last year when they unveiled a couple of EVs, one that looked like a Bugatti and the other that looked like a Rolls-Royce Cullinan. And then they brought a couple of their cars to the CES show in Las Vegas in January. Dreame by day is a robot vacuum maker, but they decided that they would like to get into EVs, kind of like Xiaomi, the Chinese equivalent to Apple, has also decided to do that. Although Dreame is shooting much, much, much higher. We also saw at CES the original Nebula one, which is about 1,876 horsepower. This kind of dials the whole thing up to 11. They recently held the Dreame Next event in San Francisco, and that's where they unveiled the Nebula Next 01 Jet Edition, reportedly sporting, and I kid you not, a dual solid fuel rocket booster system. If this sounds familiar, it should. The Tesla Roadster, which we were promised we were going to see last month, but maybe not, still not unveiled yet, is supposed to use cold air thrusters developed by SpaceX to almost kind of maybe sort of make it fly, although I wouldn't count it as actually flying. Now, they're targeting 0 to 60 in, believe it or not, 0.9 seconds. This is helped by a response time of 150 milliseconds and peak thrust of 100,000 newtons of force. It features, so they tell us, cell-to-pack 4.0 battery integration technology, ultra high definition LiDAR, as well as a, believe it or not, solid state battery with 450 watt hours per kilogram of energy density and steer by wire. They've reportedly partnered with BNP Paribas to build a factory outside of Berlin so they can sidestep the Chinese EV tariffs, and that would target a 2027 launch for their portfolio. I would take all of this with a grain of salt. It's fun to dream about. I'm sure it'll go up as a poster on lots of kids' walls, but we'll wait to see if they actually decide to build something like this or the rest of their equally outlandish and fascinating portfolio. That about rounds up the news for this week. Hope you enjoyed what you saw, what you heard. If you did, please subscribe and share. Visit AutoPerspectives.net to check in on the blog. Look for me on LinkedIn, and I will actually be on vacation for a bit. So I will see you all in a few weeks, and keep your eye on what's going on in the business. It is constantly changing and never boring. See you soon.